Cool. So let's move on to the mindset piece. As you're all starting to do business plans, a lot of your managers are asking you for your business plan. We went through how everyone kind of backs into, the monetary side, but very few people are going into all of these different areas of your life and really taking inventory of where you're at, And so today, while I described this and told you to go and make a couple of goals in each of these categories, we're going to really break it down. Danny and I have done this exercise several times. I've been doing it religiously for years and years and years. So we're going to show you how to go through this, the process that we actually go through. And our hope is that not only will you do this for yourself, it will take you not long at all to do, but also that you'll share it and pay it forward with other people. It's great to do. Like, it's mandatory with my team. We do it every single year, every single person. I do it with realtors. I do it with my friends and family. So it's really just a really great exercise. And I think when the whole world in the business community is asking about your income goals, it's really important to stay balanced and create goals in every area of your life. So that, again, we are working to live. We are not living to work.
So team, this is going to be a great time for you to start taking notes if you haven't been taking notes already. So a couple of takeaways here that we want you to get. First is, this is something that you'll do consistently, this exercise that we're going to go and walk through with you. And you're going to want to do it a minimum of once a year, but the actual recommended is every 6 months. So you can think of it as, I think of it as almost like project management. So you're essentially going to be creating a sprint of your life, and you're going to create action items that are in 6-month chunks that you're going to be executing, and you're going to be inviting those in your life that you share this exercise with to execute over that 6-month time frame. And then you're going to revisit every 6 months. And you're going to do a look back and say, what did I accomplish that I wrote down? And then you're going to set new goals for the following 6 months. And just imagine it. And I can share personally that every time I've done this exercise, it has made a dramatic impact, meaning that the rate at which I executed on all 7 areas of life far exceeded anything that I would have perceived to be possible without this. But just imagine every 6 months, you just got 5% better, right? And just imagine what a 5-year run of that, a 10-year run of intentional work in these 7 areas of your life would look like. And so I invite you to have that in your mind as we're walking through this. We're going to go through this step-by-step tactically so that you can really then share this back with your team. And what I'll say is that the 3-page document that we're going to share, we took some screenshots of to add to this presentation. If you'd like us to send you a copy, you can email either Mark or myself at mark@tribecoaching.com or danny@tribecoaching.com, and we'll make sure that you get a copy. What's that?
2 Eyes in Tribe.
2 Eyes in Tribe. Yes. Yeah. Thank you. All right, so let's kick it off and actually go through the worksheet.
All right, so the first thing that you're going to do is, whether you're facilitating this or doing it yourself, is just go through each area of your life. So we'll start with money, and we're going to identify 2 frustrations. So one of the frustrations I can think of that I had, it's very vivid to me because it stung, was there was a business opportunity that was brought to me in 2019, and I did not have enough liquid savings to feel comfortable making that investment. So one frustration I had around money was that I did not have enough liquid savings, and I couldn't liquidate in enough time to take advantage of the opportunity, and the opportunity passed me by, and I very much regretted that. And so, that was a frustration that I had around money. There's also been times where I just said, man, I'm not making enough. I was resentful because I felt like I was being underpaid in my situation. I've had times where I said, hey, I'm not a good steward of money. I don't know where my money's going. I know that I could be better in that. So those are all examples of, frustrations around money. So you're just going to list out 2, and it's mandatory that you do 2, not 3, not 1, but that you have 2 frustrations around money in your life, and you just identify the basic two things. The number one thing from this whole exercise that I want you to take away, if you're on this call, you're likely a coaching person. You're into personal growth. You want to get better. You're like me. You're like Danny. You invest in yourself, right? A lot of us, when we're given exercises like this, especially in a coaching forum, we're very programmed and we don't even know it. We'll just write things down, and it's our canned answer. We're not trying to be canned, right? But we're just writing things down to go through the motions because we've been to 950,000 different coaching things, and that's just automatically what we do. The most important thing for me, for you, is to be brutally honest with yourself and really think about your life as it pertains to money. And what is it that you're frustrated with? Especially, I do this a lot in groups, and a lot of times I'll just conform to what everybody's doing. So the main thing is to take inventory and really identify a couple of different frustrations when it comes to money. And after you've done that, in the box to the right where it says rate 1 through 10, being terrible and 10 best, how would you rate your life as it pertains to money? So if you're feeling really good about money, you might be an 8, a 9, a 10. If you're really not happy with where you're at up until now, it might be a 1, a 2, a 3. If you're neutral, it's going to be a 5, and you would just place that number in that box. Danny, anything you would add?
No. So I think there's a couple of things that I would add. So the first one is that I recommend before you facilitate a group, which I highly recommend that you do facilitate your team or your realtor partners, referral partners, do this yourself just to make sure that you're prepared to kind of go through the exercise. It does typically take about an hour to get through, all of the steps of it. And when you're facilitating, to just carry on Mark's point about not having a canned answer, you're going to want to be really vulnerable and authentic with yourself when you're doing it alone. And then if you're facilitating your group around this, the more authentic and vulnerable your answers in these boxes, the more permission the group that you're facilitating will have to put authentic answers in these boxes for themselves. But if you set the bumpers, right, of how that event's going to go, and if you go extreme in your vulnerability and openness about your money, your work, yourself, and then they're never going to go past you, right, when you're facilitating that group. So you're going to be able to set those boundaries for them. So the more space you give them, the more authentic answers you're going to get. And along the lines of facilitation is really just the power move here, especially with your referral partners, because they're, realtors, don't typically have the same, not always, but don't typically have the same networks of business planning and coaching that we as mortgage professionals do. And what I found in my business, and I know this is true for you as well, Mark, is that there's a huge need and desire for coaching, business planning. Many realtors in particular didn't go to school to be an entrepreneur. They didn't go to school to be a business owner. And here they are, staring down what can be a very, lucrative business with employees, et cetera. And so having guidance from us it can be a very powerful trust building tool that allows you to authentically say to them, this is why you pick me over the, internet lender or the person down the street. And then the other thing that I'll share, because this is something that was important for me to get my head around, is that when you get to the spirituality box, this doesn't just apply to religion, right? This applies to any sort of way in which you create space in your mind, right? Whether it's yoga or meditation or whatever spiritual connection, right? Human connection or extra human connection, whatever that means for you, that's what you would put in the spirituality box. You don't have to. I was raised Catholic, so at first when I got to this box, I was like, I'm not really practicing in the same way anymore. So, am I a 1 in spirituality? But then I realized that I had evolved a different view of connection, and I then put into the box the things that were meaningful for me in that area.
I love it, man. And so let's talk about, some of you might be thinking about, man, no way could I facilitate this, and I certainly don't know how to approach my realtors about it. You know, I'd like to offer to any of you that are out there that want to go through this exercise for free, zero cost. We can set up a call. I will facilitate this. I'll do it myself again alongside you so that you can see exactly how we go through this, and we can go through it together, and also provide you some scripting on how it is, you know, based on how you feel that you approach people. So if you're feeling super nervous and not brave and you just want to test the waters around what Danny has said, we feel very comfortable going after and coaching them, and we feel very strong. There was a time in my life when I was insecure about doing that. So, you know, my insecure script would be like, hey, I found this super helpful, Danny. I would like to go through it. I would really love to have a partner. You know, I want to make these 14 goals for myself. Have you done goals this year? And is it something you're interested in? Right? That's my insecure script. It's much different than like, Danny, this is life-changing. You need to be there. Clear your schedule. I know you're not doing this on your own. It's absolutely something that you need to do. Make time to make this happen. Can I count on you to be there? Right? That's my secure script. So I've evolved from when I first started doing this to today, but that's how you might approach different realtors. Secondly, when you're facilitating this in a group, like Danny said, if you're going to put something out there, it gives everybody else the license to then go after it as well. But you also want to make sure that people feel comfortable sharing and aren't feeling, you know, judged. So I would recommend doing super small groups at first, and then maybe building. And actually, there's more power in small groups. I used to invite a bunch of realtors in a room, and you know, the other realtor didn't know the other realtor, even though they knew me. And then when I started going to coffee shops and just doing it with individual groups, people would open up a lot more when I opened up, because of the small, there's more trust. I think if I tended, success at an event was how many people I got there, right? And with this, it's how many groups can I do it with? I'll do it with my BNI group. I'll do it with 6 different groups of realtors. I have some friends that are calling me saying, hey, can we go to coffee and do this? I remember last year, it was so impactful. So I might do this thing 10, 12 times, you know, at this time with my employees. So I've got a lot of different groups that I do. But from a business sense, even though I'm not expecting this from this at all, I'm genuinely not. It's just truly so impactful me that I want to share it with other people. But man, what a great way to come out in January. And right now you might not be thinking about that because you have so much business. But when purchase business is key, really caring about someone, going back to what Danny just said in the mindset, really caring about someone, going deep, take time to help them go through this process is much more valuable than splitting their lead costs or any of that other stuff that's constantly asked of. So I would invite you, you know, to be brave and just go buddy up with someone, do it with them until you feel super comfortable and start facilitating in groups. But on this page, you want to just basically go through, and you don't want anyone to go ahead. So you want the group to stay. And when people share, right? So this is the other part. Like I'll stop and I'll say, hey, here's what I'm worried about with money. I'm just not making enough to hit my retirement goals as early as I want to. You know, like what are some frustrations of anybody that feels comfortable? And people will start to share their frustrations. I've literally picked up some of the best ideas in my life that have, I mean, one area that's really helped me is my marriage, and what other different people have shared with me in love life, and just ideas to keep your marriage fresh has been amazing. And so the more people share and feel comfortable sharing, not only is it great because you're getting deep with people right away, but it also is a great way to switch things up in your own life. Like great workouts have come up, you know, great things in every area of your life. Anything you add there, Dan?
No, well, I'll just tie this off for the last, you know, step. I think we touched on, and hopefully all these areas are pretty intuitive, right? You know, work is, you know, your about, how you're showing up in your business or how your business is structured. Really that you can get creative around that. Things that I've touched on in self is, certain health goals will typically fall into that for me. Friends, almost always has been, not spending enough time with them. However, I have had instances where when I've done this wheel, I've recognized that, for example, and this is where vulnerability came in, there were friends in my life that were no longer, serving me in the way, in terms of the relationship that I had with them wasn't allowing me or them to grow in the way we wanted to. And so those are things that we discovered. Family, I think, is pretty intuitive, as is love life. And it's really important to be as accurate as you can, obviously with little to no context, right? This is self-assessment. When you rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10 here, to really be as honest with yourself as you can, right? In terms of, and this is you measuring yourself against your best self, not you measuring yourself against any other person except that version of yourself that you want to be.
Yeah, I think that part's really important. And for work, for me, frustrations have been like where I sit in the office to, hey, I just have not been able to fully implement my CRM. So, it could be a number of things. And again, like Danny said, it will start to be pretty hard not to compare yourself to other people in the room. But remember, this is you, right? So if you're only making $50,000 and you're in the room with someone that's making $1 million, do not compare yourself to that person. Like, you're in a different spot on your journey. And I think if you start to compare, it defeats the purpose. This is just to analyze where you're at so that you've got a baseline to get better.
Perfect. And then, so you get the number, you get the 2 exactly, and no fewer than 2 in each box. You put the 1 through 10 in each box here, and then you pick from this list, if you could only do one of the 14 things over the next 6 months, you write down, or if you can only address one of these problems, you're not actually creating action items yet. You can only address one frustration, you would put that then down in the bottom. Then the next step is pretty straightforward. So there's 10 hash marks on this wheel and essentially all you do is
Can you show up with your cursor, Danny?
What's that?
Can you? Yeah. Go with your cursor. There you go.
Yeah. You have the numbers here. So let's say this was 6. You'd go here to money, and you go from the center up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then you just mark this hash mark here with an X or a circle. Just mark it, and then you do the same thing for all the others. Work, you put your number, and then you go all the way around. And then once you have all 7 dots or X's that are there, you then just draw a line between all the dots. And if you're like me, you're going to find out this is where you get that moment of clarity where you're like, oh, I am way out of balance. My family or myself or my spirituality is at a 3. And so, or my love life's at a 2, and money's at a 6, and work's at a 7. And you draw these lines, and you find out that this wheel would not roll. And so then you basically, once you look at that wheel, hopefully you will have one of those aha moments where you say, okay, this is where I need to focus. And I'm gonna use a kind of a silly analogy here, and also make a movie recommendation. If any of you haven't watched the 1980s Arnold Schwarzenegger documentary called Pumping Iron, it's one of the gems, cinematographical genius. One of the things that Arnold says as he's leading up to his, I don't know if it's his 3rd, 4th win as Mr. Universe or whatever it is that every morning he stands in front of a mirror and he looks at his muscles and he says, that's the one I need to work on, right? And that's the one I'm going to focus on today. He doesn't try to do the whole job all at once. He does one day at a time. And so that's what I picture in my head when I think about this visualization of the wheel, because this is just a graphical representation of where I'm at relative to my 10 out of 10 self. And I can then see this is my weakest muscle. It's family, it's love life, whatever that is, friends or self. In my case, that's usually this bottom area of the wheel that I'm getting crushed. And then you can get your aha from that. Anything you'd like to add to that, Mark?
Yeah, I think, one of my mentors asked me to think about importance one time. And I remember I was like super, in work and money, but my family and my love life were so low. And he was like, well, what's more important, the work or the money, or your family and your love life, right? And so one of the ahas that people often have here is that the things that are most important are the lowest on the wheel, or are the flat part of the wheel. And it really can be a wake-up call of what to work on, right? And so when I look at this, the same exact thing that Danny said about Arnold, I love that visualization. It's like, man, that's what I need to work on. And don't judge, just get after it, right? Like this is you doing an assessment and being aware of it. And that's what we're trying to give you, just a super simple tool to look at your life every 6 months and say, where am I at? We want you to live happy, rich, amazing lives. And this is just one of the simplest things that you can do if you actually execute on it, that will drastically help you, both with realizing where you need to be and getting a plan together to kind of execute and go after that.
Mark, I'm going to call an audible here, and I'm going to offer a version, a couple of modified versions of what you can do in this space for yourself with this sheet. So definitely execute, especially your first time around, exactly as instructed. But another way that you can approach this is by taking the 7 things and ranking them 1 through 7. So you have your ranking of yourself in each of them, but rank. So the one thing that was shared with me, early on in my career, is that if you really want to know what's important to somebody, you look at where they spend their time and their money, right? And where they're spending their time and their money is truly where they're creating prioritization. So the first thing to do in this modified analysis is, to your point, Mark, is to just take all 7 of these and rank them 1 through 7 in importance, right? And for me, it would be
family number 1.
Yeah, clearly, right? You go down this list and really doing an honest assessment. Certainly, family for me would be number 1, but then do a assessment of time and money spent, right? Relative to your family, are you spending more time and money in your work, right? Are you spending more time and money focusing on your investment accounts and your 401k, et cetera? And what I found when I did that modified version of this exercise is that I was even more out of balance than this wheel suggested. Because when I actually ranked where I was spending my time and money relative to what was truly important to me in a self-assessment, I was way off. And then the next thing to do, modified version of this, is take that same assessment and fast forward 40 years from now and try to future cast yourself 40 years in the future. And then ask yourself, what would be my prioritization 40 years from now, right? Would it be different than it is today? Or whatever span of time, 60, 100 years from now, right? 100 years from now, I'm going to be dead most likely, unless I'm mostly robot. But if that's the case, what should have been the most important thing to me while I was alive, right? And it probably wasn't work and money. And so, not to say that those aren't things that are going to fuel our rich enjoyment of our friends and family and ourselves. We can't ignore them. That's why we're here, right? This is a personal and professional coaching platform. But I think that just coming to awareness around that can be really powerful. It was for me.
Man, that's amazing. I love the tip of fast forwarding, 40 years. So let's go to the final page here. We've got 10 minutes. So, this is kind of the payload and where everything pays off. But basically, once you've identified those frustrations, you see on the wheel of life your balance after you've plotted out those dots to see what your wheel, or in my case, like a star, it looks nothing like a wheel a lot of times. The next thing you're going to want to do is set goals. And we talked in our last session exactly how to make SMART goals, right? Things that are specific, measurable, achievable, relatable, and timely. I might have gotten that R.
Relevant.
What is it? Relevant. Sorry. But
and time restricted.
And yeah, in money, if I said that I didn't have enough liquid savings, what a lot of people will do, and this is important if you're facilitating as well as doing, you might put here, save more money or some version of that. And what I spend most of my time with when I'm facilitating is listening to people's goals and saying, I like that, you're on the right track, but what I would say is save 10% of my paycheck every single month, or send X amount of dollars to my financial planner every month, or, so I'm now making it, and that on this page is all I do from a facilitation standpoint, is take general things that people want to do and help them crystallize a plan of how they can make that specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time restrictive, right? So Danny said, hey, just make this all for 6 months. And I sometimes will come out and do an even shorter version, like, hey, by this time, I'll just fill out every single one of these so that I've got goals in a shorter time frame. I go a little crazy, but I'm typically doing this for the year, right? And this time next year, it's part of my business planning, right? I do this all again, and it helps me from business, but it's like a religion. It's just like, I just do this now, right? So with money, you're going to want to make, again, 2 suggestions here. And this is where it's really important to get people feeling very safe so that they'll start to share. Because the more ideas that come out, the more it helps everybody. And that's what tribe coaching is all about. Like, we want this tribal knowledge. We want everyone to share. There's no ego here. And the more people share ideas, period, across the industry, the better we're all going to be. And so this is really an exercise that's in alignment with our fundamental core values.
Yeah, that's well said, Mark. And really, first, again, doing this for yourself before you facilitate it is going to be key. And then you'll find, and I have done this exercise probably a dozen times personally, and every time I still mess this up. So give yourself some grace, right? You'll look back and go, I'll say I want to have more family meetings, right? And I'll say, no, that's not the right way to frame this. It's I'm going to meet, at least 2 times a month, and we're going to have a structured family meeting at least 2 times a month on Sunday. And so extraordinarily specific and time restricted.
And you've done a good job of that, because Jackie has told me about family meetings. So, I think you've done a really good job, implementing a lot of these things. But even if you don't, right, guys, worst case scenario, you don't implement, you don't make your goals specific, you just come through here and you say, save more money, make more money, move my office, get the courage up to ask for a raise at work. I'd really like to work out twice a week. I'd really like to start eating healthier. I want to plan one trip with my friends. I want, none of that specific measurable. But if you just go through and you write down 14 goals for your life, it's more than probably, I'm making statistics up, 90% of the people are going to do. And if you just write it down and put it someplace where you will see it once in a while, it will amaze you when you look back and you see how many of these things you actually did just because you wrote it down, even if they aren't specific. So that's not what we're encouraging you to do, but I am encouraging these 3 pieces of paper have been life-changing for me. They have made such a big difference. They have been so impactful. And the number one question that I get is, Mark, what advice would you give, and how did you get there? And which are great, flattering comments. But like, it's the simple stuff, just like this form. And maybe there's 10 or 20 of these little things that I've done over and over and over and over. But this is one of those things where it's like, if you just are super honest and you actually do it, it will make a difference.
One thing I did was not only that, but I took what my priority goal was, the one at the bottom, and I actually wrote it on the mirror in my bathroom in a dry erase marker. And I said, I'm going to do this by this time. And so every day I woke up, brushing my teeth, I'm looking at my goal, right? And it's staring me right in the face. So writing it down, keeping it present for you so that you can't hide from the version of yourself you committed to becoming. That has, for me, been a really powerful tool to make sure this, ultimately got implemented. And so I actually skipped ahead here, which is to say that I talked about that most important goal again, same tactic as you would use for the first page, which was about identifying out of the 14 items that you're going to list here, if you were only to do one of them, which is the one that is a non-negotiable for you, and then writing that down at the bottom and identifying kind of why that one's important to you.